My husband thought inviting his ex-mistress to my brother's wedding as a VIP investor was a brilliant power move. He believed I was just the oblivious wife, blinded by his wealth. But as I gripped the microphone for my toast, Grant had no idea I was holding the detonator to his entire life. In exactly 5 minutes, I would turn this multi-million-dollar celebration into the most brutal public trial the Hamptons had ever seen. My name is Natalie, and as I sat in the back of the sleek black limousine winding its way toward the Hamptons, I should have felt like the luckiest woman in New York. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tinted windows, casting a golden glow on my husband, Grant, who was busy scrolling through his phone with that detached, important air he wore like a second skin. We were heading to the most significant event of the year for my family, the wedding of my younger brother, Liam. It was supposed to be a celebration of love and new beginnings, but the air inside the car was thick enough to choke on. Grant finally looked up from his screen, adjusting his silk tie with a casual indifference that made my stomach turn. He cleared his throat, not to offer a compliment or a kind word, but to drop a bomb that would shatter the fragile peace I had been trying to maintain. "Natalie, there is something I need to mention before we arrive," Grant said, his voice smooth and devoid of empathy. "Monica is following in the second car. She will be staying at the resort for the weekend as a VIP investor for Liam's new project." I felt the blood drain from my face. Monica. The name alone was enough to make my skin crawl. Before I married Grant, Monica had been the bane of my existence, a wealthy socialite who had made it her personal mission to remind me of my humble roots. I remembered the charity gala 5 years ago where she had spilled red wine on my only good dress and loudly wondered if I could afford the dry cleaning bill. "You invited Monica?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly despite my best efforts to remain calm. "To my brother's wedding, Grant. She hates me. She has spent years trying to humiliate me." Grant sighed, an exaggerated sound of annoyance that made me feel small. He turned his cold blue eyes toward me, his expression hardening. "Oh, stop it. Natalie, you are being hysterical. Monica is putting $2 million into Liam's firm. This is business. Do not make this about your petty little insecurities." Insecurities? I snapped, the anger finally bubbling to the surface. "She is your ex-girlfriend, Grant, and she treats me like dirt. You are bringing her here to disrespect me in front of my entire family." "I am bringing her here to ensure your brother does not go bankrupt within a year," Grant countered, his tone sharp and cutting. "If you ruin this deal because you cannot control your jealousy, you will be the one hurting Liam, not me. Grow up, Natalie." He turned back to his phone, effectively ending the conversation. I sat there in silence, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. This was his favorite weapon, gaslighting. He twisted reality until my valid feelings were nothing more than the ravings of a crazy, ungrateful wife. When the limousine finally pulled up to the sprawling estate, the grandeur of the venue felt like a mockery. Liam was waiting at the entrance, looking handsome in his tuxedo, but visibly anxious. He rushed over to open my door, his smile bright until he saw the second car pulling up behind us. Monica stepped out, looking like she had stepped off a runway in Paris, wearing a dress that cost more than my parents' house. Liam looked from her to Grant, confusion clouding his eyes. "Grant," Liam asked, his voice wavering. I didn't know Monica was coming." Grant stepped out and buttoned his jacket, looming over my brother. "She is the lead investor. Liam, treat her well, unless you do not want the funding." Liam swallowed hard, fear flickering in his gaze. He looked at me, silently pleading for help, but I could do nothing. He was terrified of offending the man who held the purse strings. "Of course not," Liam stammered. Welcome, Monica." Monica ignored Liam and walked straight up to Grant, slipping her arm through his as if I did not exist. She cast a glance in my direction, a smirk playing on her red lips that chilled me to the bone. "Lovely to see you, Natalie," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Try not to trip on your dress this time." I watched in horror as Grant's parents, who had been waiting near the entrance, greeted Monica with warm embraces, completely bypassing me. To them, I was still the outsider, the gold digger. Monica was one of them. Grant did not even look back at me. He allowed Monica to guide him into the main hall, leaving me standing alone on the cobblestones. I was the wife, yet I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. As I watched them walk away, a cold knot formed in my stomach. It was not just jealousy or anger. It was a deep, primal warning. The way they moved together, the way Grant had manipulated Liam, the sheer audacity of her presence, it all felt too orchestrated. This was not just a business deal. This was a setup, and I was the target. The welcome dinner that evening was a masterclass in superficial opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm, deceptive glow over the long banquet table. But the light could not reach the dark corners of my mind where suspicion was beginning to take root. I sat across from Grant, picking at my lobster bisque, my senses dialed up to high alert, while the other guests were distracted by the jazz band and the endless flow of champagne. My eyes were locked on my husband and his so-called business partner. They sat next to each other, their shoulders brushing with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. It was not just the physical proximity that alarmed me, it was the way they communicated. Grant would lean in, whispering something into Monica's ear, and she would nod, her eyes scanning the room like a predator. Then I saw it. Under the white linen tablecloth, Grant's hand slipped a thin blue folder onto Monica's lap. It happened in a split second, swift and practiced, like a magician's sleight of hand. My heart hammered against my ribs. What kind of legitimate investor documents needed to be passed like contraband during a dinner course? "Excuse me, I need to powder my nose." I murmured to the empty air, as Grant was too busy pouring wine for Monica to notice me leaving. I retreated to the ladies' room, seeking a moment of silence to process what I had just seen. I was washing my hands when the door swung open and the click of high heels echoed on the marble floor. I froze, recognizing the heavy scent of Monica's perfume. I slipped into the last stall and locked it, holding my breath. A moment later, I heard the beep of a phone call connecting. Monica's voice, sharp and devoid of the charm she displayed in public, cut through the silence. "Yes, he is completely under control," she said, letting out a cruel laugh. "That idiot knows nothing. She thinks I am here to save the family business. Once the contract is signed tomorrow afternoon, we will kick her to the curb and the assets will be ours." I pressed a hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. That idiot! She was talking about me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was not just an affair, it was a heist. I waited until she left, trembling as I exited the stall. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection. My eyes looked wide and frightened, but I forced my lips into a stiff, plastic smile. I had to go back out there. I had to play the part. As I returned to the table, my mind raced, connecting disparate pieces of information that I had previously ignored. Over the last month, Grant had been obsessively asking about the land trust my parents had left to Liam and me. He had called it estate planning, urging me to consolidate the titles for tax purposes. I had trusted him. I had trusted my husband with the legacy my parents built from nothing. Later that night, while Grant was in the shower, I saw his phone sitting on the nightstand. My hands shook as I picked it up. I punched in his passcode. The date of our wedding. Incorrect passcode. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried the last 4 digits of his social security number. Locked for 1 minute. He had changed it. Grant, who had never locked his phone in 5 years of marriage, had suddenly built a fortress around his digital life. He was hiding something massive, desperate. I found Liam in the hallway outside the ballroom. He looked exhausted, loosening his tie as he barked orders at a catering manager. "Liam, I need to talk to you." I said, grabbing his arm. It is about Grant and Monica. I heard her on the phone. They are planning something bad. You cannot sign those papers tomorrow. Liam pulled his arm away, his face flushed with stress. Natalie, stop. Please, I cannot deal with this right now. Sarah is freaking out about the flowers. Half the guests are complaining about the humidity. And now you are spiraling because of an ex-girlfriend. It is not about jealousy. Liam. They are after the land trust Grant is helping us. Liam snapped, his voice rising. He is securing the funding I need to expand. You are just stressed. Go to bed. Natalie, we will talk after the wedding. He walked away, leaving me standing alone in the corridor. He would not listen. No one would. I was on my own. I returned to our suite, my mind sharpening with resolve. If I could not get into his phone, I had to find another way. I remembered that Grant was paranoid about cloud storage leaks. He always backed up his critical files onto a physical encrypted drive that he kept in a portable biometric safe he traveled with. I lay in bed, feigning deep sleep as the hours ticked by. Beside me, Grant tossed and turned. Finally, around 1 in the morning, the mattress shifted. I kept my breathing steady as Grant slipped out of bed, grabbed his keycard, and quietly left the room. He was going to her. I opened my eyes in the darkness. This was my chance. I sat up, looking at the small metal safe sitting on the desk. It was time to find out exactly what my husband was selling. The moment the door clicked shut behind Grant at 1 o'clock in the morning, I threw off the covers. I did not have time to cry or wallow in the betrayal. I had to know the truth. I grabbed my makeup bag from the vanity and pulled out a brush and a compact of translucent setting powder. It was a trick I had seen in a crime thriller years ago, and I prayed to God it worked in real life. I tiptoed to the desk where the small black safe sat like a monolith holding all my husband's secrets. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the brush. I dusted the keypad lightly, blowing away the excess powder. Under the dim light of the desk lamp, faint smudges appeared on 4 specific numbers. Okay, think. Natalie, I whispered to myself, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I tried the first combination that came to mind the day we met. The safe beeped. A red light flashed. Incorrect. I wiped my sweaty palms on my silk robe and tried again. His mother's birthday. Beep. Red light. Incorrect. The digital display blinked a warning. One more wrong attempt and the safe would lock down for 24 hours. If that happened, Grant would know someone had tampered with it. I closed my eyes, trying to think like him. He was arrogant, sentimental about his conquests, and currently obsessed with one person. I felt a wave of nausea as I punched in the numbers 0, 6, 1, 5. June 15th, Monica's birthday. The mechanism whirred, and the door swung open. You disgusting! I choked out the words, the humiliation burning my throat like acid. He used his mistress's birthday to lock away his life. I reached inside. There was a stack of cash, thick bands of $100 bills, but I ignored them. Beneath the money lay a blue folder titled Merger Draft. I flipped it open, scanning the legal jargon with frantic eyes. It was an agreement between Liam's company and something called Vantage Holdings, a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. My finger traced the lines until I found the clause that made my blood run cold. Collateral assignment. All assets currently held under the Natalie V. Trust, pursuant to the power of attorney dated March 3rd. No, he wouldn't. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. He was not investing. He was using the power of attorney. I had signed the one he swore was just to help manage my taxes to mortgage everything I owned. He was putting up my inheritance, my parents' legacy, as collateral for a high-risk loan to fund this fake merger. If the shell company defaulted, which it clearly would, the bank would take everything. Liam and I would be left with nothing but debt. I dug deeper into the safe and found a manila envelope. Inside were photographs. I pulled them out and felt the room spin. They were Polaroids of Grant and Monica, naked, entangled in sheets. But it was not the nudity that shattered me. It was the location. They were in the loft apartment in Brooklyn, the one I had bought with my own savings before I ever met Grant. The one place that was solely mine. He took her there, I whispered, tears of rage blurring my vision. He took that filth into my sanctuary. I did not have time to break down. I grabbed my phone and started snapping pictures. Click. The contract. Click. The signature page. Click. The vile photos. My hands were trembling, but my fear was evaporating, replaced by a cold, hard hatred. I was no longer the victim. I was the witness, the judge, and soon the executioner. Suddenly, the electronic lock on the hotel room door beeped. He was back. He was hours early. Panic surged through me. I shoved the papers and photos back into the safe, not caring about the order. I closed the heavy metal door, wiped the powder off the keypad with the sleeve of my robe, and killed the desk lamp. I dove into the bed just as the main door swung open. I squeezed my eyes shut, regulating my breathing, feigning the deep sleep of the ignorant wife. Grant walked into the room, his footsteps heavy on the carpet. I felt the mattress dip as he sat down to take off his shoes. The air filled with the cloying, sickly sweet scent of Monica's perfume. It was suffocating. He laid down beside me, pulling the duvet up. He was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. Almost done, he mumbled into the darkness, his voice thick with sleep and arrogance. Just one more day. I lay perfectly still, staring at the back of my eyelids. He thought he had won. He thought the game was over. He had no idea that I had just rewritten the rules. The morning sun hit the Hamptons with a brightness that felt offensive given the darkness of the night before. I did not confront Grant when he woke up. I made him coffee. I kissed his cheek. I played the role of the devoted wife so perfectly that he left for his morning golf game, which I knew was a strategy meeting with Monica without a second glance. As soon as the door clicked shut, I was on the phone with David, an old college friend who was now a shark of a forensic accountant in Manhattan. I sent him the encrypted photos via a secure messaging app. The silence on the other end of the line was agonizing as he reviewed the documents. "Natalie," David's voice came through, low and serious. "You need to listen to me very carefully. This is not just a bad deal. This is textbook wire fraud and money laundering. They are using the wedding gift money to wash the funds, and the loan against your trust is structured to default within 30 days. If Liam signs that today, you both lose everything." "I knew it," I whispered, gripping the phone until my knuckles turned white. "David, is this enough to stop him to send him to jail?" "It is strong, but a good lawyer could argue he was just a bad businessman, not a criminal." David warned, "You need intent. You need him admitting he knows it is a scam. If you can get that, I can bury him." I hung up, my mind racing. I needed an ally on the inside, someone who had as much to lose as I did. I thought of Sarah, Liam's fiancée. She was a corporate attorney herself, sharp as a tack and fiercely protective of Liam. If anyone could understand the legal gravity of this, it was her. I found Sarah in the bridal suite, surrounded by half-packed suitcases and garment bags. She looked up, smiling, but it faded when she saw the look on my face. "Natalie, what is wrong? Is it Liam?" "Liam is fine, for now," I said, locking the door behind me. "But we need to talk. And you need to promise me you will not scream." I laid it all out. The affair, the photos, the shell company, the mortgage on the trust. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her face paling with every swipe of the phone screen. When she looked up, there were no tears, only a cold, hard rage that mirrored my own. "That son of a bitch!" Sarah hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "He is trying to bankrupt us on our wedding day. He thinks he can play us like fiddles. He thinks we are stupid," I said, sitting beside her. We need a confession. Sarah, today, before the ceremony, we hatched a plan. I knew Grant and Monica had reserved a private meeting room at the resort club for a final review before lunch. I remembered my nephew, Noah, had been running around with a high-end spy kit. Liam had bought him a working listening device disguised as a black button, connected to a receiver app. I intercepted a housekeeping staff member in the hallway, a tired-looking woman pushing a cart. I pulled $500 cash from my purse. "I need a favor," I said, keeping my voice steady. "This small black button needs to go into the floral arrangement in the meeting room. Right now?" No questions. She took the money, nodded once, and disappeared. 20 minutes later, Sarah and I sat in the bridal suite bathroom, sharing a set of earbuds connected to Noah's tablet. The audio crackled, then cleared. We heard the heavy thud of a door closing, followed by the click of heels. "Did you get the signature page ready?" Monica's voice came through, clear as day. "It is done," Grant replied. I could hear the smirk in his voice. Liam is so desperate for my approval, he did not even read the first draft. He will sign his life away between the appetizer and the main course. Sarah squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. We listened as they laughed, the sound of ice clinking in glasses echoing through the tiny speaker. They discussed the offshore accounts, the specific timeline for liquidating my parents' land, and how they would frame the financial collapse on Liam's incompetence. Then came the line that would seal his fate. "You know," Grant said, his tone dripping with arrogance. "I almost feel bad for them. But then I remember my wife's family is so stupid, they will probably thank me for selling them. They were bred to be victims." "Monica, I am just speeding up the process." I hit the stop button on the recording app. The silence in the bathroom was deafening. I looked at Sarah. She was not just a bride anymore. She was a soldier. "We have him," Sarah whispered, a terrifyingly calm smile spreading across my face. "Let's go get ready for the wedding. I think red lipstick is appropriate for a slaughter. Don't you?" By noon, the sun was high over the Hamptons, casting a brilliant, blinding light over the estate that felt entirely appropriate for the performance I was about to give. I found Grant and Liam in the library, a room smelling of old paper and expensive leather. Grant was holding a thick dossier, his posture radiating the benevolent authority of a king bestowing a favor upon a peasant. Monica stood nearby, sipping sparkling water, her eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. "This is more than just an investment." "Liam," Grant was saying, his voice smooth and reassuring, "think of this as a wedding gift. $2 million from Monica's private equity fund to clear your overhead and jumpstart the new development. All you have to do is sign the acknowledgement of debt transfer, and the wire goes through on Monday morning." I breezed into the room, clapping my hands together with a delight that felt sickeningly fake on my tongue. "Oh, Grant, you are actually doing it!" I exclaimed, rushing over to hug his arm. I looked at Liam, widening my eyes in a silent command to play along. "Liam, do you have any idea how lucky you are Grant has been working on this all week? You should sign it immediately so we can celebrate." Grant glanced at Monica, a smug little smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I saw the look pass between them, a look of shared victory. They thought I was the perfect, oblivious puppet, eagerly handing my brother the rope to hang himself. "Natalie is right," Monica purred, stepping closer. "It is a standard agreement, just a formality." Liam picked up the pen, his hand hovering over the paper. Then, as if on cue, he dropped the pen and doubled over, clutching his stomach with a groan that was perhaps a little too theatrical, but effective enough. "Oh, God," Liam gasped, his face twisting in pain. "I think it is the ulcers. The stress it feels like I am being stabbed." Grant's smile faltered. Impatience flashed in his eyes. "Liam, just sign the paper. It will take 2 seconds." "I can't focus," Liam wheezed, leaning heavily on the desk. "I need to lie down." Please, can we do this tonight after the ceremony? I promise. Right after the cake cutting. Grant looked ready to explode. He ran a hand through his hair, his jaw tight. He looked at Monica, who gave a slight shrug, indicating that a few hours would not ruin their master plan. Fine, Grant snapped, snatching the folder back. After the cake. Do not make me chase you. Liam, thank you. Liam groaned, stumbling toward the door where Sarah was waiting to whisk him away. The room fell silent. I knew I had to secure the final piece of the trap. I turned to Grant, beaming with admiration. Honey, I said softly, brushing a piece of lint off his lapel. Since Monica is being so generous, and you two have worked so hard on this, why don't you invite her to give a speech tonight? You know, to honor your partnership? I think everyone should know how close you two are. Grant blinked, surprised by the suggestion. Then his ego took over. The idea of being publicly praised by his beautiful, wealthy business partner in front of the elite crowd was too tempting to resist. That is actually a wonderful idea. Natalie, he said, puffing out his chest. Monica, would you? I would love to, Monica said, her eyes locking with mine. I have so much to say about loyalty. Perfect, I said, checking my watch. I have to go check on the bride. I left the library, my smile vanishing the second I turned the corner. I did not go to the bridal suite. Instead, I headed straight for the audio-visual booth set up in the garden. The technicians were busy testing the microphones. Hi, I'm the groom's sister, I said, flashing a $50 bill and a USB drive. There was a last-minute change to the tribute video. The bride wants this version played instead. It is a surprise for the groom, so please, do not test it until the moment comes. Can I trust you? The young technician took the cash and the drive, nodding enthusiastically. You got it, ma'am. Surprise video. Locked and loaded. My final stop was our suite. Hanging on the door was the dress Grant had selected for me, a pale beige chiffon number that was elegant but designed to make me fade into the background. He wanted me invisible. He wanted a ghost. I ripped the plastic cover off and threw the beige dress into the back of the closet. From my own suitcase, hidden beneath layers of casual wear, I pulled out my purchase from earlier that week. It was a structured, floor-length gown in a deep, blood-red satin. It was bold. It was dangerous. It was the color of war. I stepped into the dress, the fabric hugging my curves like armor. I looked in the mirror and applied a coat of lipstick to match. The woman staring back at me was not the stupid wife Grant had laughed about. She was the one who was about to burn his world to the ground. The wedding reception was a masterpiece of floral design and soft lighting set against the backdrop of the manicured gardens. String lights twinkled overhead like captured stars, and the air was filled with the scent of jasmine and the soft crooning of a live band. But at the VIP table, the atmosphere was toxic enough to kill the hydrangeas. I sat between Grant and Liam, with Monica positioned directly across from me. She was drinking champagne like it was water, her eyes darting between Grant and me with a look of triumphant amusement. She leaned forward, her voice pitching just loud enough to be heard by the surrounding guests. I must say, Natalie, that dress is quite aggressive, Monica said, gesturing to my blood-red gown with her flute. Usually, one tries to blend in at a wedding, not scream for attention. But I suppose when you are desperate to be seen, you make desperate choices. I swirled the wine in my glass, watching the red liquid coat the crystal. I did not flinch. I did not look down. I looked her dead in the eye. I disagree, I said, my voice calm and steady. Red is the color of blood and fire. It is perfect for a sacrificial ritual, isn't it? Monica's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She exchanged a confused glance with Grant. Grant shifted in his seat, his brow furrowing. He had expected me to crumble, to apologize, or to run away in tears. My newfound spine was unsettling him. You are acting strange, Grant muttered, leaning close to my ear. and you are gripping that purse like your life depends on it. What is in there?" He reached for my clutch, his fingers brushing the clasp. My heart slammed against my ribs. The USB drive with the original video file was gone, but my phone with the damning text messages from the lawyer was inside. If he saw the screen, the game was over. "Grant, stop!" I hissed, trying to pull away. "Give it to me," he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Natalie, we need the sister of the groom for photos." Now Sarah's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She appeared behind us, flanked by the photographer and 2 bridesmaids, looking frantic and commanding. She grabbed my hand and yanked me out of my chair before Grant could react. "Sorry. Grant Bride's orders," Sarah chirped, pulling me toward the rose garden. As soon as we were out of earshot, Sarah squeezed my hand. "That was close. Are you okay?" "I am fine," I breathed, my hands trembling. "Did you switch the video?" "It is done," she whispered. "Check your phone." I pulled my phone from the clutch. There was a new message from David, my lawyer friend. "FBI and Economic Crimes Unit have the package. They are en route. ETA 20 minutes. Do not let him leave the premises." 20 minutes. I had to keep a man who was growing increasingly suspicious glued to his seat for 20 minutes. I smoothed my dress and started to walk back toward the reception tent, but a hand shot out from the shadows of a large oak tree and grabbed my upper arm. I was yanked into the darkness behind a decorative pillar. It was Grant. His face was twisted in a snarl I had never seen in public. He squeezed my arm hard, his fingers digging into my flesh with bruising force. "What the hell is going on with you?" Grant spat, his face inches from mine. "You are strutting around here like you own the place. You are embarrassing me. Natalie, I saw you whispering with Sarah. I saw the look on your face when you spoke to Monica. If you are planning some petty little scene because you are jealous, I swear to God, you will regret it." The pain in my arm was sharp, but it felt distant. Fear had left me hours ago, replaced by a cold, anesthetizing rage. I looked at the man I had once loved, the man who was currently hurting me to protect his mistress and his crimes. "Grant, you are hurting me," I said, my voice eerily level. "Then stop acting like a lunatic," he growled, tightening his grip. "Go back to that table, sit down, keep your mouth shut, and smile. Do you understand? Do not ruin this night." I looked up into his eyes, searching for any trace of the husband I thought I knew. There was nothing there but greed and malice. "I would not dream of ruining it," I said, a slow, chilling smile spreading across my lips. "I just want tonight to be memorable." "Darling?" Grant froze. Something in my tone, or perhaps the deadness in my eyes, sent a shiver through him. He released my arm as if I had burned him. He took a half step back, adjusting his cufflinks, trying to regain his composure. "You are losing your mind," he scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. "Just get back to the table." He turned and walked away, dismissing his unease with the arrogance of a man who believed he was untouchable. He had no idea that the timer on his life was ticking down to 0. The moment arrived with the tapping of a spoon against a crystal glass. The crowd hushed as Grant took the stage, holding the microphone with the confident ease of a man who believed he owned the world. He looked dashing in his tuxedo, the picture of a devoted brother-in-law and a successful tycoon. He launched into a speech about family values, loyalty, and the bright future of Liam's company, weaving a narrative so false it made my skin crawl. None of this would be possible without the incredible generosity of a very special partner, Grant announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "Please join me in thanking Monica, whose vision and support have been a lifeline for this family. She is truly a savior." The spotlight swung to the VIP table. Monica stood up, basking in the applause. She smoothed her silver dress and tossed her hair, soaking in the admiration. Before she sat down, She locked eyes with me. Her gaze was sharp and mocking, a silent declaration of victory. She thought she had stripped me of my dignity, my husband, and my inheritance. I stood up. The red satin of my dress rustled as I walked toward the stage. The crowd parted for me, sensing the shift in energy. Grant saw me coming and smiled, assuming I was coming up to stand dutifully by his side. "And here is my beautiful wife," Grant said, extending a hand. I ignored his hand and reached for the microphone. "Grant, wait," I said, my voice steady and amplified across the garden. "I have a special gift for you, and for Liam. A surprise to honor this unique partnership you have built." Grant looked confused for a split second, but his ego quickly took over. He nodded to the guests, playing the part of the doted-upon husband. "Well, I love surprises." He chuckled. I signaled the technician in the booth. "Let's play the video," I commanded. The garden lights cut out, plunging the wedding party into darkness. The massive LED screen behind us flared to life. Grant turned around to watch. A bright, expectant smile plastered on his face. He was expecting a montage of childhood photos or romantic clips set to a sentimental ballad. Instead, the speakers crackled with the sound of a zipper being undone. The image on the screen was grainy but unmistakable. It was the interior of Grant's private office. Grant was there, pushing Monica onto his mahogany desk. The crowd gasped in unison. It was not just the visual of them tearing at each other's clothes that froze the blood in everyone's veins. It was the audio. The high-quality microphone I had planted picked up every wet sound, every groan, and every word. "God, I can't wait until this is over," Grant's voice boomed over the horrified silence of the wedding guests. "One more day, and I never have to touch that boring cow again. Just make sure Liam signs the papers." Monica's voice replied, shrill and breathless. "I want that land. Grant. I want to see their faces when the bank takes their parents' house." The video cut to a split screen. On one side, the illicit lovers continued their affair. On the other side, a document appeared. It was the merger contract, blown up to massive proportions. Bright red digital ink, courtesy of my forensic accountant, circled the fraudulent clauses. Clause 4, transfer of debt liability to Natalie V. Trust. Clause 9, immediate liquidation of assets upon default. Status shell company. Detected. Illegal wire transfer. The garden was deathly silent, save for the amplified sounds of Grant and Monica's betrayal echoing off the trees. I watched the guests. Their hands were over their mouths. My parents-in-law looked like they were having heart attacks. "No," Monica screamed from the floor. "Turn it off. Turn it off right now." She scrambled out of her chair, desperate to stop the humiliation. She lunged toward the cable running to the projector, her face twisted in panic. But in her haste, her high heel caught on the hem of her gown. She crashed face first into the grass, sprawling in a heap of silver fabric and shame. Grant stood frozen on the stage next to me. The color had drained from his face so completely that he looked like a corpse. He stared at the screen, then at the contract, and finally, he slowly turned his head to look at me. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the terrified realization that his life was over. I held the microphone to my lips one last time, my voice cold as ice. "Happy wedding day." "Liam," I whispered into the silence, "I think I just saved your company. This is the priceless lesson I promised you." "Grant," I declared, my voice echoing like thunder across the manicured lawn. "You wanted to sell my family down the river for a few $1,000,000. I decided to sell your reputation first, and unlike you, I did not need a shell company to do it." The silence that had gripped the garden shattered instantly. It was replaced by a low, buzzing roar as the Hamptons elite realized they were witnessing a social execution. I watched from the stage as men in tailored suits, Grant's investors, his partners, the people whose validation he craved more than oxygen, reached into their jackets. Phones lit up the darkness like fireflies. "Cancel the bridge loan," I heard a prominent banker shout near the front row. "Pull the funding, now! I do not care what it costs to break the contract." Grant stared at them, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked like a king watching his castle crumble into dust. But before he could beg, a blur of motion stormed the stage. It was Liam, my brother, usually so gentle and conflict-averse, had murder in his eyes. He did not say a word. He simply wound up and drove his fist squarely into Grant's jaw. The sound of the impact was sickeningly wet and loud. Grant stumbled back, tripping over the microphone cord, and crashed onto the stage floor. "You dirty traitor!" Liam screamed, his voice breaking with raw emotion. "I looked up to you. You were my brother." Grant scrambled to his feet, wiping a streak of bright red blood from his lip. He did not look ashamed. He did not look sorry. He looked feral. His mask of the sophisticated businessman had completely dissolved, revealing the monster underneath. He shoved Liam aside with a force that sent my brother sprawling and turned his wild eyes on me. "You," Grant hissed, stepping toward me with his fists clenched. "You ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you have done? You stupid, ungrateful bitch, I built this life for you." He lunged at me, his hand raised to strike. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. I did not flinch. I did not step back. I stood my ground, staring him down with cold indifference. Before he could reach me, security guards rushed the stage, but Grant was already unraveling. In the chaos, I saw a flash of silver near the side exit. Monica was trying to sneak away, clutching her purse to her chest, her head down. She was abandoning ship, but she did not get far. Sarah and her army of bridesmaids blocked the path, forming an impenetrable wall of silk and judgment. "Going somewhere?" "Monica," Sarah asked, crossing her arms. "The party is just getting started. I believe you still have a speech to give." Sarah grabbed Monica's arm, spinning her around. The crowd jeered as the VIP investor was exposed as nothing more than a co-conspirator. I turned my attention back to the microphone. I was not finished. "Grant seems worried about money," I announced, my voice cutting through his shouting. Which is funny, considering how generous he is with other people's funds. "Mr. Sterling, are you still in the audience?" A gray-haired man in the second row stood up slowly. It was the CEO of the investment firm where Grant worked. His face was purple with rage. "I am here, Natalie," Mr. Sterling said, his voice shaking. "Check the corporate accounts for the dummy vendor payments labeled logistics over the last 6 months, I said, holding up a second stack of papers I had pulled from my clutch. "You will find $300,000 funneled directly into an account held by Monica Vance to pay for her luxury apartment. He has been stealing from you to keep her happy?" Grant froze. The fight went out of him for a second as the weight of the accusation hit him. Embezzlement was not just a scandal, it was prison time. Mr. Sterling did not need to check his phone. He pointed a trembling finger at Grant. "You are fired. Grant, consider your equity forfeited. I will have the legal team on you by morning." That was the breaking point. Grant let out a sound that was not human. It was a guttural roar of pure, impotent fury. He thrashed against the security guards who were holding him back, his face contorted into a mask of pure evil. "I will kill you," he screamed, spitting blood onto the stage. "I will kill all of you." "You think you can do this to me? I am Grant Miller. I own this town. I will burn this whole family to the ground." He kicked and bit, revealing the violent, abusive nature he had hidden so well under his expensive suits. The guests recoiled in horror, finally seeing the beast I had been sleeping next to. I just watched him, calm and untouched in my red dress, as he destroyed himself completely. The distant wail of sirens pierced the night, cutting through the chaotic murmur of the crowd like a jagged knife. At first, it was a low hum, but within seconds, it grew into a deafening crescendo that drowned out the jazz band and the shocked whispers of the guests. Blue and red lights began to flash against the white silk of the reception tent, casting a nightmarish strobe effect over the ruined party. Grant froze. His head whipped toward the entrance of the estate, his eyes wide with the realization that his escape route was closing. The arrogance that had defined him for years evaporated, leaving behind only the desperate, frantic energy of a trapped animal. He looked around wildly, his gaze landing on the banquet table just below the stage. In a blur of motion, he broke free from the security guard's loosened grip. He did not run for the exit. Instead, he lunged for the table. His hand closed around the handle of the massive silver cake knife, the one meant to slice through the 6-tier vanilla fondant masterpiece. "Stay back," Grant screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Do not come any closer." He spun around and grabbed the person nearest to him. It was Monica. She had been trying to blend into the crowd, but Grant yanked her back by her arm, hauling her in front of him like a human shield. He pressed the serrated blade against the soft skin of her throat. "Grant!" Monica shrieked, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Grant! What are you doing? Let me go! Shut up!" Grant roared, tightening his grip until Monica gasped for air. He looked out at the sea of horrified faces, his chest heaving. "She made me do it. You hear me? This was all her idea. She is the one who set up the shell company. I am a victim here. I just did what she told me to do." The betrayal hit Monica harder than a physical blow. Her eyes bulged as she processed his words. The man she had conspired with, the man she had laughed with just hours ago about destroying my life, was now offering her up as a sacrifice to save his own skin. "You coward," Monica choked out. "You lying coward." Panic gave way to fury. Monica, realizing she had nothing left to lose, opened her mouth and sank her teeth viciously into Grant's forearm. She bit down with everything she had. "Ah!" Grant howled in pain. His grip loosened just enough for Monica to scramble away, clutching her neck. He staggered back, momentarily distracted by the agony in his arm. I saw my opening. I was still standing on the edge of the stage, holding a glass of heavy red wine that I had picked up during the commotion. I did not hesitate. With a swing of my arm, I hurled the crystal glass straight at his face. It struck him squarely on the bridge of the nose. The glass shattered on impact, exploding in a spray of shards and crimson liquid that blinded him instantly. "My eyes!" Grant screamed, dropping the knife as he clawed at his face, unable to tell if it was wine or blood running down his cheeks. "Police, get down! Get down, now!" The command roared from the darkness as a tactical team swarmed the garden. Men in heavy vests and helmets vaulted over the hedges and rushed the dance floor. Before Grant could recover, 2 officers tackled him, driving him face first into the ground. He landed hard in a pile of crushed flowers and spilled champagne, the expensive tuxedo now soaked in the filth of his own making. "Grant Miller, you are under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny," an officer barked, wrenching Grant's arms behind his back. The click of handcuffs was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. Another team had cornered Monica near the buffet. She was sobbing, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. But the officers were unmoved. "Monica Vance, you are under arrest for conspiracy to defraud and money laundering," the officer stated, spinning her around to cuff her wrists. I stood on the stage, looking down at the scene. I smoothed the skirt of my red dress, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. Below me, the man who had treated me like a naive fool was being dragged through the dirt like a bag of garbage. He looked up, his face smeared with red wine and dirt, and for a second, our eyes met. There was no defiance left in him, only fear. I lifted my chin, staring down at him with the cold detachment of a queen watching a traitor being hauled to the dungeon. I did not say a word. I did not have to. The image of him broken and bound at my feet said everything. The chaos of the arrest left a strange, vibrating silence in its wake. The wail of the sirens faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of the ocean breeze rustling through the ruined floral arrangements. My brother, Liam, walked over to me. His tuxedo was rumpled and his face was pale, but his eyes were clear for the first time in months. Sarah stood beside him, clutching his hand so tightly her knuckles were white. "Natalie," Liam said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I do not know what to say. You saved us." "You saved everything." "You did not just save the company," Sarah added, stepping forward to wrap me in a fierce hug. "You saved our dignity. Thank you." I squeezed her hand, feeling the adrenaline finally beginning to ebb, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. Family protects family. He forgot that rule. I didn't. At that moment, the remaining officers were marching Grant toward the driveway. He was stumbling, his expensive shoes scuffing the dirt, his head hanging low. When he saw me, he stopped. He did not scream this time. He just looked at me with a hollow disbelief that was almost pitiful. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded document. I had visited my lawyer 3 days ago, the moment I suspected the truth. I uncapped a pen and, using the back of a stunned waiter's tray, I slashed my signature across the bottom line. I walked up to Grant, the officers pausing to let me say my final piece. I did not slap him. I did not scream. I simply tossed the papers at his chest. They fluttered down, landing in the dirt at his cuffed feet. "I signed them this morning," I said, my voice smooth and deadly calm. "I am keeping the house, the cars, and my dignity. You are keeping the debt and the criminal record." Grant looked down at the papers, then back up at me. His lips parted, but no words came out. "You did not just lose the money." "Grant," I continued, leaning in close enough so only he could hear, "you lost your reputation, you lost your freedom, and you lost the only person who ever actually loved you. Happy early anniversary." The officers shoved him forward. He did not look back. I watched as they shoved him into the back of the patrol car next to a sobbing Monica. The heavy doors slammed shut, sealing their fate. I watched the taillights turn red as the car pulled away, disappearing into the darkness of the Hamptons' night. It was over. The parasite was gone. I turned back to the reception. The guests were standing in awkward clusters, whispering, unsure if they should leave or stay. They looked at me, the woman in the red dress who had just orchestrated the most brutal takedown in socialite history. I walked to the nearest table and picked up a fresh glass of champagne. I walked to the center of the dance floor, my heels clicking rhythmically on the parquet. I raised the glass high. I apologized for the interruption. "Everyone," I announced, my voice ringing out with absolute authority. "It seems we had some pest control issues to deal with, but the trash has been taken out, and the air is much cleaner now." A few people gasped, but then a smile rippled through the crowd. "Please," I said, gesturing to the band, "continue the party. We are here to celebrate my brother and his beautiful bride. Do not let the losers ruin the winner's night." Cheers. I drank the champagne in one long swallow. For a second, there was silence. Then, one person started clapping. Then another. Soon, the entire garden was erupting in applause. They were not clapping for the wedding. They were clapping for the performance. They were bowing to the predator who had eaten the wolf. The band started playing a slow, soulful jazz number. Liam and Sarah took the floor. reclaiming their night. I did not join them. I set my empty glass on a table and turned away from the lights, the music, and the hollow admiration of the crowd. I walked past the edge of the manicured lawn, my bare feet sinking into the cool sand as I headed toward the ocean. The wind whipped my red dress around my legs, and the salt spray hit my face. I was alone. I had no husband. I had enemies. But as I looked out at the vast, dark water, I realized I had something far more valuable. I had my freedom, and I had the absolute certainty that I would never be a victim again. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed this journey of justice and revenge as much as I enjoyed telling it. Please drop a comment down below and let me know where you are tuning in from. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on Grant's karma. If you want more stories like this, please make sure to subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button so we can share this story with even more people. See you in the next one.